Right now on Currents News, calling for change.
Italian Americans gathering in the shadow of Christopher Columbus in Columbus Circle, standing together for their culture, calling for the Department of Education to bring back the Explorer's Day. I'm Jessica Easthope, and I'll have more of their message.
Plus, a farmer finds 5 young migrant girls abandoned near the border.
Hungry, crying. One didn't have any clothes on.
The youngest, just 11 months old. Holy Land in crisis. Israel and Palestine on the brink of war as they trade rocket attacks. Dozens are already dead. And Pope Francis greets people at the Vatican for the first time in months. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Bring back Columbus Day. That's the message from a group of Italian Americans who gathered in Columbus Circle. Currents News' Jessica Easthope traveled to Manhattan to hear their call to the City Department of Education.
Italian Americans have had their passions ignited, fighting together today for a common cause. Get the Department of Education to put Christopher Columbus Day back on the calendar.
Keep Columbus Day. Keep.
Representatives from the outraged community are making their voices heard, rallying around the Italian explorer they say is being canceled.
Our civil rights have been violated. The civil rights of, as I said, tens of thousands of Italian American students in the public school system, and this wrong should be made right.
Last week, the Department of Education replaced Columbus Day, celebrated on the second Monday in October, with Indigenous Peoples Day, then later added Italian Heritage Day to its calendar. Mayor Bill de Blasio says he wasn't consulted before the change was made.
This process wasn't handled right. I certainly didn't hear about the change, nor did the chancellor.
If the day is not reinstated, Italian American organizations say they're prepared to take legal action.
And on behalf of the lawyers, we are going to do everything that the legal system has to offer.
Trial attorney Arthur Aidala says he'll take any path necessary to get Columbus Day back on the calendar.
There's not an obvious route, but we have some brilliant legal minds figuring out a way to do that.
One fact about the Italian explorer that never seems to be up for debate is Christopher Columbus was Catholic. Those rallying Wednesday say any attack on Italian American culture is an attack on faith.
He believed in Christianity. He wanted to spread the word of Christ.
The Catholic Church is not going to be canceled. Christopher Columbus is not going to be canceled. And the Italian American contributions to this country are never going to be canceled.
Community leaders say the time is now to fight for the students who are on the losing end of the move.
They want to rob us of free speech about Columbus in the schools. They want to take away the statues. They want to expunge him from history, which you just can't do.
Governor Andrew Cuomo has said he does not agree with the decision to remove Christopher Columbus Day from the public schools calendar and assured it will remain a city and state holiday. In Manhattan, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Now to the latest at the southern border. A tragic discovery by a farmer in Texas. 5 young girls found alone and struggling to survive.
I was making around here on the farm, and it was about 8:30 in the morning. Just driving along, and all of a sudden, I see them there, right beside the bank here on the river. 5 little baby girls, all by themselves, hungry, crying. One didn't have any clothes on. I don't think they would have made it if I hadn't found them.
Yeah, no.
Because it got up to 103 yesterday.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirms the girls range in age from 7 years old to 11 months old. 3 of them were from Honduras and 2 from Guatemala. CBP says the young migrants did not need medical attention and will be transferred to Health and Human Services custody. The agency is reporting record numbers of people detained along the border, close to 180,000 in April, the largest number in at least 2 decades. CBP says almost 2/3 were deported, and the number of minors who were taken into custody has dropped 12% from March. The national correspondent for The Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg, got a first-hand look at the situation at the border. He joins us now to talk more about it. And John, you had the opportunity to speak with many migrants while you were in Texas. So tell us about the migrant families you spoke with and how they described their journey to the U.S.
Sure, Christine. So, in particular, there were two families that come to mind that I spoke to specifically at the Humanitarian Respite Center in McAllen, Texas, about their journey. They both describe situations where they're living on the street. They don't know where their next meals are coming from. It's living meal to meal, shelter to shelter, sometimes not even a shelter. They're just sleeping on the streets. And these aren't just adults, these are people with young children. One of the women was pregnant, the other had two young children with her. And they tear up as they tell these stories of just how difficult it is for them to make this journey to get here. Both came from Honduras, and it took them months.
I want to show a picture you took while down at the southern border. It's a new government facility for children. What can you tell us about that?
So that facility, that's down in Donna, Texas, and that it's a fairly new facility that they put up while I was there and at the end of April. And so while I was there, I spoke to Sister Norma Pimentel, the Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley, and Bishop Daniel Flores of Brownsville, who actually visited that facility soon after it went up. And what they told me is that that facility, the conditions are good. It wasn't at its capacity of 1,500, but it was close. And so what they said was, the children are treated well. They're in groups of 50, and they have a lot of caseworkers that are working to get them to their families. But what they also said is that in conversations with these children that, they say the food's good, the conditions are good and all of that, and there are things for them to play, but more than anything, they say that they want to go home and they want to be with their family members. And so they said that that's what they emphasize to the government officials at these facilities, that you need to prioritize getting these children to their sponsors as quickly as possible, because that's what they want most and that's what they need, because they, like the people I just talked about, went through a very harrowing journey themselves.
Absolutely. John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for your reporting down there.
Thank you. Have a great day.
20 governors are calling on the Biden administration to get a handle on the situation at the southern border. The all-Republican lawmakers say the border is neither closed nor secure. They say the Department of Health and Human Services went behind their backs by asking nonprofits and private organizations to put up unaccompanied children apprehended at the border. The governor's also saying they don't have the resources or funds to handle the crisis. In the Bay Area of California, the Asian community is reeling from yet another racist attack. San Leandro police are on the lookout for two suspects, one of them as young as 16, who assaulted and robbed an 80-year-old Asian man. The police department says from 2019 to 2020, they've seen 3 times as many crimes toward Asian and Pacific Islander community members. San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone spoke to Currents News about the danger of these attacks.
It shows the power of kind of a societal attitudes that and the disrespect for life that we're seeing in our society right now. This is horrific. Innocent people being attacked because of their ethnicity. I want Asians to know that we stand with them and we denounce any kind of violence such as this.
Archbishop Cordileone went on to encourage Catholics to reach out to their Asian brothers and sisters for whatever help they might need. In New York City, the NYPD is dealing with a spike of hate crimes against Asian Americans. Through May 2nd of 2021, the NYPD investigated 80 possible anti-Asian crimes, almost 3 times the number of crimes reported in 2020, which was 28, and about 26 times the number in 2019, when only 3 crimes were reported that entire year. The man accused of opening fire in Times Square is in custody. Farrakhan Muhammad was arrested in Jacksonville, Florida, days after shooting 3 people in the crossroads of the world. Police say he was targeting his brother. Among those shot was a 4-year-old girl. Dramatic video shows a police officer taking her to a waiting ambulance. She is now out of the hospital after undergoing surgery. Also tonight, violence in Jerusalem, Israel and Gaza trading non-stop rocket attacks.
Unprecedented barrage of rockets against our civilians.
Dozens dead on the streets where Jesus once walked. Many are children. Currents News with the conflict that could escalate into a full-scale war. The Holy Land in crisis. The Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem says the violence in the city requires urgent intervention. It actually began a month ago, and it seems there's no end in sight. The sound of airstrikes hitting buildings in Gaza. People in central Israel running as sirens go off. Bombed out buildings, destroyed vehicles, and debris on the ground. The sights and sounds as violence between Israelis and Palestinians escalates. Palestinian militants in Gaza fired hundreds of rockets into Israel, which responded with ramped-up airstrikes, prompting the Israeli government to declare a state of emergency.
The rocket fire that we saw towards central Israel, towards Tel Aviv, and really the heart of Israel, is of course totally unacceptable, something that the IDF will not stand for, and we are planning and conducting operations to make Hamas pay the price for their aggression against Israel.
Israel's Defense Force said they struck a number of targets, including Hamas intelligence officials, and Hamas has confirmed its Gaza City commander was killed. Palestinian officials say dozens of people have been killed by Israeli airstrikes, some 220 injured.
And in any military activity in a densely populated urban area, just like Gaza, and in an area where the terrorist enemy uses civilians as their human shields and makes it virtually impossible to totally distinguish between enemies and non-combatants, it's a very difficult situation.
Israel says several people there have also been killed, including a 5-year-old, after a bus was bombed by a rocket from Gaza. One soldier was also killed. The conflict is showing no sign of easing and is raising international concern. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the president's support for Israel's security and its right to defend itself will never waver.
Jerusalem, a city of such importance to people of faith around the world, must be a place of coexistence. It is up to the officials, residents, and leaders to restore the city to a place of calm.
Secretary of State Tony Blinken has dispatched a top State Department official to meet with Israeli and Palestinian leaders to urge de-escalation. He says the U.S. remains committed to a two-state solution. There's a lot more news headed your way. Democrats are looking to pack the Supreme Court, but some experts say that's not a good idea. Plus, a sight not seen for 7 months. People back at the Vatican for the Pope's general audience. And ducklings followed their mother through an elementary school. And coming up on Tuesday, grocery store prices are soaring.
Definitely noticeable how prices are higher.
And prices could climb even more.
Frankly, this is going to go on for a while.
Families are struggling to put food on the table. What can you do to save on your grocery bills? Join us for a Currents News special report, Supermarket Shock, Tuesday at 7. U.S. bishops are calling on Catholics to protect the Hyde Amendment. The measure bars taxpayer money from being used for most abortions. The amendment became law in 1976 in response to the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade decision. It's re-upped every year as a rider to federal spending bills. However, it now faces an uncertain future. U.S. bishops are asking Catholics to sign a petition and voice opposition to the amendment's repeal. Democrats recently introduced legislation that proposes expanding the Supreme Court from 9 to 13 seats, a move Republicans call court packing. Here to unpack what it all means is Alan Sanders, professor emeritus of political science at St. Peter's University. So, Alan, the number of justices on the High Court changed several times until 1869, when the number was set to 9 and has stayed that way. So, how realistic is this proposal?
Not very. It's really a proposal to highlight the fact that the Democrats are upset that the Republicans, in their view, have packed the court with conservatives for decades, really going back to Ronald Reagan. So really, it's a mechanism to really start the conversation about the Supreme Court, its role, and whether there should be changes in the way justices are picked or how long they serve on the court. It's just a mechanism to get the conversation going, I think.
All right, what's interesting is that President Biden has changed his position on a possible expansion over the years. Back in 1983, then Senator Biden called FDR's packing proposal a bonehead idea. But during the presidential debate last September, he wouldn't answer whether he'd support it. Let's listen.
It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct. But it was a bonehead idea.
Senator, I'm not going to answer the question because the question is
radical left. Will you shut up, man? Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
He later said he was not a fan, then went on to clarify that he would create a commission because it was getting out of whack, which he has done. So where do you think Biden stands?
Well, I think Biden is well aware that the Supreme Court, as a third branch of government, can undo many of his proposals. And because of that, he's open to thinking about what can be done to amend, to restructure the Supreme Court. He's not a radical. He doesn't want to redo the Supreme Court. 9 justices is already quite a number. Remember, it's very hard to get them, even when you get 5 justices, it's very hard for them to agree on an actual majority opinion. So if you expand the court to 13, you might have just a bigger mess in which you have 13 different opinions. And that's not a recipe for a good, solid legal set of precedents. So Biden is well aware that change has to occur, but I think he's willing to think it through. It's not at the top of his agenda. The commission that he has created will issue a report sometime in October, so there'll be lots of time to think this through and to figure out what makes the most sense.
Do you think the point of the commission was to just kind of head off any pressure from the left that he might be feeling?
Certainly, that's part of the mission, to head off some of the pressure from the left of the party, who's quite adamant that the Supreme Court has to move towards the middle instead of being a solidly conservative court. But I think more broadly than that, there's great concern among the scholarly community and the court-watching community that the court needs reform. It's kind of crazy that justices can get to serve an average of 26 years now in recent years, and some of them go over that. Justice Thomas, for instance, is now almost 30 years on the Supreme Court bench. You know, that's a long time, and many people believe that a turnover would modernize the court and get it to be more receptive to current political issues and current political trends.
So they are looking at that, this commission, right? Is it 18 years they're looking at? Why do you think that would be better?
Well, the scholarly consensus among many scholars is to create a fixed term of 18 years for Supreme Court justices. The reason for that is it's a long time. It would allow them to develop their judicial philosophy, but also it would allow each president gets to serve 4 years. It would allow each president to nominate 2 justices. So what this would do is, over time, it would allow both Democrats and Republicans, depending on who won the presidential election, to put 2 justices on the court. And so, broadly speaking, it would allow the court to move with the political trends of the country. We'll see whether the commission agrees with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Alan Sanders, Professor Emeritus of Political Science at St. Peter's University. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Congresswoman Liz Cheney is out as chair of the House Republican Conference. GOP members of the House voting her out as punishment for rejecting former President Donald Trump's claim that he won the 2020 election. Cheney is not backing down and reiterated after the vote that she will not support Trump.
We cannot both embrace the big lie and embrace the Constitution. And going forward, the nation needs it. The nation needs a strong Republican Party. The nation needs a party that is based upon fundamental principles of conservatism.
New York Representative Elise Stefanik, a fierce Trump supporter, has already sent out a letter to her colleagues outlining why she wants to fill the post. President Joe Biden will not deliver the commencement address at the University of Notre Dame after he was invited to do so. The White House expressed its hope that Biden would appear at a future commencement ceremony of the Catholic University during his first term. U.S. presidents have customarily been invited to address graduates at commencement ceremonies. President Trump did not attend in his first term, but VP Mike Pence went in his place. Pilgrims were able to attend a general audience with Pope Francis for the first time in 7 months. Pope Francis wasn't wearing a mask, but he stopped to talk to people while keeping his distance. Children from Switzerland gave him a drawing of their family, which he gleefully accepted. During his catechesis, the Pope expressed his joy for resuming his meetings with the people.
Sono contento di riprendere questo incontro faccia a faccia. Portate il messaggio del Papa a tutti. Il messaggio del Papa è che io prego per tutti e chiedo di pregare per me, uniti nella preghiera.
The Pope also revived another tradition of his weekly audiences, meeting with sick pilgrims. He stopped to greet them before leaving. A Marian icon escapes from a church fire unscathed. The Church of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Belarus caught fire Tuesday. The icon of Our Lady of Budslaw was found unharmed amid the flames. According to local media, volunteers ran into the church as smoke billowed out to remove the icon and the Blessed Sacrament. The roof was destroyed. The cause of the fire is unknown. Still to come on Currents News, keeping the prayers coming. The Pope's month-long prayer marathon continues in Algeria. We'll take you there. And it's a long-running tradition that's for the birds, but it's helping elementary school students too. The Vatican is continuing its month-long prayer marathon, hoping to bring an end to the pandemic.
Je vous salue Marie, pleine de grâce, le Seigneur est avec vous.
Wednesday's service was held at Our Lady of Africa in Algeria. Catholics there dedicated the rosary to all who live alone and who have lost hope. Next Monday, the marathon will come to the United States at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. Net TV will be airing that prayer of the rosary live. That'll be on May 17th at noon. And finally tonight, in a world that's ever-changing, a group of elementary students in Hopkins, Minnesota is learning about growing up from a mama duck and her babies. The long-standing tradition of the feathered family parading down the halls, seen as a metaphor about the transition from elementary school to junior high. Boyd Huppert has the story.
Should I show you how to cut it?
The kindergartners.
That looks perfect.
In Betty Johnson's room at Eisenhower Elementary.
A butterfly.
Know what it's like.
I love it.
To be the new kids.
Come on.
Maybe that's why they're so fond of this in-school field trip.
To look at the mama duck and the babies.
A mallard mom who dropped into their courtyard and hatched her latest brood.
How many babies do we have this year?
10 baby ducks.
10 ducklings with a doting uncle.
As soon as they're born, I'm like, okay, everyone stay away, everyone be careful, everyone look out.
Jeff Shepard has been keeping an eye on this.
I'll be right back.
For years.
I'm right here in the media center, so I have the really great windows.
A birthing tradition that started 2 decades ago when the first mama duck flew into the school's closed courtyard to lay her eggs, then hadn't a way to get her flightless ducklings back out.
These are 5th graders and they're all engrossed in it as well.
Till someone thought of this door that leads to this hallway, that leads to this pond behind the school.
So much fun to watch her walk down the hallway.
A tradition that's continued one generation of ducks to the next.
Oh, good job, Mama.
In a few weeks, Eisenhower's 6th graders
They're so cute.
will also make their last walk through these doors.
Oh my gosh. Let's go, Mama.
Teachers and parents will mark the passage, even breathe a sigh of relief.
Bye, Mama.
As walls become doors.
We did it.
And young ones find new worlds to explore.
That was Boyd Huppert reporting. 2 parents from the school even made the decades-long tradition into a children's book, so we can all learn a little something from Mama Duck. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.